Right. There's me as Joseph. When I was going through this, and you look at the way the Torah portion is, and you look at from the beginning of the story of Joseph and his brothers to this point where they find themselves, it's just remarkable how the Lord orchestrates events and brings all these things to be. And it made me think of my own life. My own life has worked out, and because there I was just a little kid. But do you ever think about your life and wonder how did I get from here to here? How did that happen? How did it all work out? And I often think that it's totally balmy that I'm here, that I'm actually sat here, and that I am where I am. I just think it's balmy, in a nice way, and in a good way, obviously. And that's, if anybody wonders where we are, that's where we are. Because obviously there's people who watch online who have no idea. That's the building that we meet in. And if you go to the website, you'll see this. This I confess to you that according to the way, and that's obviously where we get the name for the fellowship, which they call a sect and a heresy. It's obviously something that we've been called. I worship the God of our fathers, believe in everything laid down by the Lord and written in the prophets. That's a great verse, isn't it? But a question I get a lot from people is, how did the way biblical fellowship come to be? Because it's probably what I'd ask as well. I'd be quite curious if I didn't know. So in light of marvelling in the Parsha as to how YHVH puts things together, I thought I'd share some of how we came to be here. Okay, so I'll quickly run through the first part of my life. When I was 14, a man came by my parents' house and started talking about God. Because at the time that I'd been watching Jesus of Nazareth on the television, it was Easter, and thinking that he was incredible. And this bloke was a bad man, apparently. He was like he was like really shady character. But my mum recognised him and said, hello, and he told him he was a pastor. She was a bit shocked by this. He came in and he started talking about God, not like what normal people talk either. And then he ended up praying for me, and I felt YHVH's presence really quite powerfully. I didn't want him to pray for me. I'd hid upstairs, but my mum shouted me down. And he said, I'm going to pray for you. And I was just thinking he was a weirdo, and he was a bit odd. And next thing, it was things changed. I ended up going to this fella's church. It was in a little scout hut in the Ford estate. And I've since realised that it was not like normal churches. Obviously, it was the first kind of church like this I went to, and I just assumed all other churches were like this. But no. This was, let's say he was quite unlike other pastors and stuff. He wasn't an ear tickler, let's put it like that. And while I was going there, I was just completely devoted to the Lord. I was persecuted a lot in school because I wasn't shy about telling them about my relationship with the Lord. I had so many bizarre experiences, like really bizarre experiences, and it's really odd. It's funny because my dad keeps meeting people who went to school with me, and they'd speak to me dad, and he says, you used to stand on the stairs and teach the Bible. And I do remember one particular moment when I was stood on the stairs, and all these kids had piled into this bit of the school, and they were all asking me questions about the Bible and stuff. And the Lord is amazing, isn't he? Because I was saying stuff, and even while I'm saying it, I'm thinking, how do I know? It was very bizarre. I ended up standing up in the school and preaching because the Lord told me to do it. I got letters sent home questioning if I was around the bend and stuff, and But then that fella who was really full on, this pastor, I think he got struck off because he wasn't like all the other pastors, and he was a bit, a bit too passionate for the Lord, I would imagine, and for the Word. And that was no longer the church. So we ended up going to, shall we say, a normal church, the kind of place where most people would imagine a church to be like. And it was rubbish. It wasn't the same, but it wasn't a rubbish church. It just wasn't the same experience. It was like, this just seems, they're not as excited, or something was just a bit wrong. And I went to a university and I ended up falling away. I lived in a real scruffy place with a guy whose nickname was Slim. He wasn't slim, he was big, and he liked drinking within a short space of time. So did I. I eventually ended up an alcoholic. Not immediately, It's just like to something that gradually took place. And I was an alcoholic. I was doing all kinds of stuff. It was all rubbish stuff. Very hedonistic lifestyle. I wasn't malevolent in anything that I was doing, but I was very excessive in certain things. I was terrified because I knew I was not in right standing before the Lord, because throughout all of it, it's not a case of do you believe in God. That's just what I know him. It's just, but I knew him, and I knew that I was not in right standing with him. Occasionally I'd go to a church and they'd kind of tell me, oh, it's okay, but I just knew that, no, it's not. So there was no comfort in their words. And I went back to a church that used to meet in this bar when I actually used to play in a band. Occasionally, and I was always drunk when I was in the church. Well, I was always drunk anyway. It wasn't like I'm going to church, I'll get drunk. I was just always drunk. It was quite appropriate that they met in a bar. And I used to feel wretched, and I wish I was like the people playing in the worship team or reading the announcements. Because they all looked like so together, and I had this idea that these people were like really holy and righteous, and I wanted to be like them, because I did feel really dirty. And it's remarkable, isn't it, really? And even in the state I was in, no matter who it was speaking the word always had an effect on me. And yeah, I was even healed whilst I was still drinking, and I now have the liver of a newborn baby. Like, ridiculous. Like, I bet my liver's better than yours. I'm not competitive, honestly. But that was quite remarkable. And when I was, so we talked about repentance, and one of the things that I always used to feel was that there was no way back for me. There was no way back. I was so terrible and I was so bad, and I think the Lord went out of his way to reassure me that that was a lie, because he's made a way. He has made a way for us. I ended up going to my 8th rehab. It was about my 8th, I think. And this time it was different. That was the place. And if you noticed there, the TN, so began a relationship. That's all we used to do all day, is drink tea there, and then go outside and smoke. I used to smoke an awful lot. But it was my 8th rehab. But I knew, so bizarre, but I don't even know why I knew, but I knew it was different. And in fact, when I came out, it was so different. I remember walking out and not knowing who I was. And I've said it before, and it is just the most strange experience. I walked out into a street I knew incredibly well. I walked up and down all the time. There was an off licence there that I frequented. And everything looked different. I felt like I was a complete stranger in this place that I kind of grew up in. And I didn't know who I was. Just even simple things like, I didn't even know what was my favourite colour. I didn't even know what food I really liked or anything. I didn't really know who I was. I didn't know anything. And I got sober, and then I got to playing in the church worship team. And I eventually became the worship leader because the guy who was, he got some kind of it was like an illness, but he wasn't ill. He felt like he couldn't do it anymore. It's so odd, isn't it? It's just, when I look back, I can see how the Lord was just going, okay, this is the way it's gonna go. But I met many people who said they knew Yehovah, and I was at a church that was growing, but I knew that this wasn't what it was to walk with Yehovah. I soon realised that I'd been going there drunk and thinking that these people were all holy and righteous, and when I got sober and I was amongst them, and I realised this is not it. This is not what it is to walk with the Lord. They're just like everybody else. They're just like all the people in the world. So I went seeking Yehovah with all my heart. I was sober now. And what they were content with just was not what I wanted. And the Lord says, doesn't he? He says, you will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. And I did seek him with all my heart. And I cried out to him. And I told him that he could do whatever he wants and he could take whatever he wants from me. And he could crush me. So long as I could be his and I could know him and walk with him again. And he met me. He took smoking from me and he met me. During my time at the Sunday church, the church where I met JP, I was asked to do a Bible study, and so far all I had was one verse. This place is quite significant. I didn't like the verse that I had, so I went for a walk to ask for another verse. What cheekiness. And on my way up, as I huffed and puffed, I thought about all the walking that Yeshua did. It's quite a walk, isn't it? Mel's been up and JP's been up. In fact, Jilly grew up near there. She knows what it's like. And it made me think of, wow, Yeshua must have been quite fit. And I imagine myself walking with his disciples. And how amazing it would have been. And as I approached the castle, I asked, Lord, can I just be one of them Christians who prays a lot? I don't even know why. I knew that this verse was so significant and that it was going to mean something. Because all I'd really been asked to do is do a Bible study, and yet there seemed to be some incredible significance to it. And I was like, oh, I've always been mad keen. So I also asked again for another verse when I got to the top. And I got to the top and I looked out and I grabbed hold of my Bible expectantly. I thumbed the closed pages and I nearly opened it. And I made a little adjustment because I was determined to wind up with a lovely little verse. Like, no, not there. Ooh, that was close. And I just changed it a bit. And I ended up with the same verse. Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of Yehovah and to do it and to teach statutes and ordinances in Israel. And as JP has pointed out, some of the ways in which we think that we connect with Yehovah, not necessarily always the way that he wants to communicate with us. But he met me where I was at the time, because he needed me to understand what it was that he called me to. I had no idea as to the significance of this verse to begin with. I had a sense that it was kind of important, but really no idea. But then Yehovah began to reveal his truth to me. And I remember I watched every episode of this series. I think there's like about 30 episodes. How remarkable the way the Lord works, isn't it? When I was putting this together, I thought out of curiosity to watch a little bit of part 1. It's just, because I can't remember what part 1 was like, but it completely blew me away. The other day when I watched it, I just broke down into tears. I've always realised that there was a significance to me watching this, but I've never put it together. At the very beginning of the teaching, it starts like this. 3 seconds in. The sum of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous ordinances is everlasting. Lord, I thank you for these teachings and for challenging me. And I don't know who David's servant is or what he knows, Lord, but I thank you for his teaching. And I pray for him, Lord, if he doesn't know the truth, I pray that you reveal it to him. I had no idea how I came across this teaching either, but it made me really excited. I knew there was something wrong with these people who were in the churches, and I just thought, I don't understand. And I knew something was happening, that things weren't going to be the same. I didn't really know much, but I kind of knew that. And then, this is what I felt like when I realised the Torah hadn't been done away with. And it was just like, it was like, no way. That's too good to be true. It can't be. And then the more I realised, it was like, is this real? This is brilliant. So I don't understand anybody who doesn't get excited at that revelation. I find my delight in your commandments, which I love. I thought they were, it was like, no way, this is just brilliant. But of course, not everybody thinks it's brilliant, do they? I don't get it. I've put these pictures up before, but it sums it up. I thought everybody would be delighted and think it was cool. Like, wow, look at this. This was kind of what I was expecting. And he saw me more like that. Like, he's completely lost the plot. He hasn't got a clue. I don't know. So, yeah, I met with quite a lot of this kind of like thing, you know. I was totally on my own, but then thankfully, Jehovah blessed me in the form of this man. JP, who also attended the Link, the church, turned out to be a fellow weirdo, which was just amazing. I don't think he could possibly appreciate how amazing it was when I first realised. And I don't even he'll tell you, I don't even know how we really started to get to know each other, really, to be honest. Pictures from 2013. As I said, I played in the worship team, and JP helped to do the sound occasionally. This is the only picture I could find on the internet. This is basically, it's in a different building, but this is the church that we were members of when we first met. It's the same pastor as well. I don't know, what did he do? Oh, I don't know. We were introduced via a man named Rod, who had been instrumental in JP coming to the church in the first place. And the way we got to first meet is because the man gave me a CD of JP. And he said, this, JP? I was like, no, who's he? He said, the sound guy? I was like, oh, yeah. He asked me to give you this. And it was a CD of JP rapping. And I was like, I have told JP since. I was like, oh, this is great, isn't it? JP rapping, and I've got to listen to it. And then I was obviously thinking, this is probably going to be rubbish. I don't like rap anyway. And I was thinking, now I'm going to have to think of something to say to him that's kind of positive. So I wasn't amazed. But I was shocked. He was very good at it. It's not my thing, but he was really good at it. And I didn't even know how. I remember calling at his house once, and we went to the beach for a barbecue on a freezing beach, which was just with people, and it was just, I didn't even know why I called at his house, and I don't think he does. It was like, but he came, and we just got very slowly to kind of talk to each other. And I remember going to his flat once, and he was playing Eminem, and I was like, I'm not really into this. There was all kinds of language in it and stuff, and he's, well, what's wrong with it? It's so remarkable to see how much he's changed. And Rod ran, the same guy, Rod. Oh Lord, I pray wherever he's at that you would be merciful with him and teach him your truth. He ran a thing called the Men's Fellowship on a Tuesday, and we'd all meet up and we'd go to 2 cafes in New Brighton. And we'd go, and some people would travel in the cars, but most people would go in the minibus. And then we'd have tea and fellowship, and at the end, the trade-off was we all had to cram into the minibus for like a 10-minute Bible teaching. And that was the Men's Fellowship. But it was there while we were all sitting around and drinking tea and stuff, where I'd start telling people about the things that the Lord was revealing to me about in his word, about this is the way things are supposed to be, and we've completely missed the point, and this is not real, and this is and obviously people hated to hear what I was saying for the most part, and were just like, nah, and obviously they'd just spit the word grace at me over and over again, and then they'd say, what about this? And I'd be like, I don't know, I didn't have all the answers, I don't know, but I just know his law still stands, but it says here, well, I don't know. And I'd be going away trying to find the answer to these questions that they'd be bringing up, and JP asked a lot of questions, and I obviously just, because everybody seemed to have a problem. And then it turned out JP was asking questions because he wanted to know the truth. And when he heard the truth, it resonated with him. And he realised, wow, it stands. So every week I'd get grief. Then came the wonderful moment, and I was there in the Men's Fellowship having a cup of tea, and they were all asking me, and one fella said, what about so-and-so? And the amazing moment, and it was such an amazing moment, was when I actually just said, ask him. And I pointed to JP. And he went over and asked him, and he had the answer. And I just thought, oh, Lord, thank you. It was so amazing. Wow, thank you. And obviously, we had an incredible bond from that point onwards, and we both had this voracious appetite for his word and for answering all these questions and all these things people would be throwing at us, because we both knew what the truth was, but we needed to be able to understand it more thoroughly. So then came the Bible study that I didn't ask to do. As a result of it, the fact of it, we both asked to leave the church. This is the Bible study. JP said the pastor looked at the end of it, he looked like the pastor had been punched in the stomach. There was no, give Charlie a round of applause for doing, there was none of that, which everybody else had got. It was more like, okay, everybody, let's go home. So anyway, on the back of the Bible study, I spoke in length to the pastor for about 3 hours while JP prayed, and I tried to reason with him, but got nowhere, and he asked me to leave. And then JP, a week later, went and met the same guy and his colleague, and while I prayed, and at the end of the meeting I had, and I went to JP, he said, how did it go? And I said, oh, terrible. He said, did you say so-and-so? I said, yeah. What about so-and-so? Yeah. But you must have said, I said, yeah. But didn't he think, no. Oh. And then he went and he came back, and I said, did you say so-and-so? He said, yeah. Well, it was exactly the same. So we both asked to leave. We were deemed dangerous, and that's probably because we were dangerous, because we had a voracious appetite for Jehovah's truth. We loved it and we wanted to walk in it. There was a real excitement. It was amazing. I remember finding out about tzitzit JP telling me, we've got to wear these things. What are you on about? And then trying to go to Abercans and buy the stuff. What's it for, love? And JP made one that looked like the rope you find on curtains. I don't know, it was just like, it was about that thick. I thought, have I made mine too thin? Since realised mine was perfectly fine. Like, Rod suggested, the same guy, that we go to a fellowship in Wales because they were a Sabbath-keeping congregation. As you can see, they were really into Israel and Zionism, rather. We were invited to do their course, the Hidden Treasures course, and some folk who were there asked if we would be considered teaching, because we had such an appetite and we'd been searching the Word to find answers to all these things people were throwing at us. We had gained some insight into His Word, and at this meeting, this teaching place, this Hidden Treasures course, which was in somebody's house, there was about 10 people around the table, and we kept butting in and saying, oh, this and this, that and the other, and it kind of like sparked interest in the other people. We would start saying, would you teach? And it was like, what are you not even on about? And whilst we were going to the church in Wales, somebody bought me a menorah. You know, I thought I'd landed. Like, look at this, I've even got a menorah. It's funny, isn't it? At first, the things you put, like, I'm not saying having a menorah is not great, but the things that you put stock in, it's like, yeah, I'm proper walking with I keep the Sabbath and I've got a menorah. I don't know. And that's me Charlie Mouse. For people who I've mentioned before, I used to take him with me when I used to go fixing hoovers when I worked for Kirby. That's the mouse. He squeezes his belly and he sings, we will fix it, we will stick it, we will mend it with glue, but we'll move on. After being asked many times, we started putting together one page of A4 teachings. I seen one that I forgot to bring it, but it's like one piece of paper with about 7 verses on it. And that at the time was like quite an undertaking. Next thing you know, the teachings were getting a little bit more involved. That was shot in JP's bedroom. You see the perfectly lovely flat wall in the background. Perfect for putting the presentation on. Next, computer presentations started to become a thing, much to my horror. It's like, oh no. And from JP's bedroom, we ended up hiding the upper room here. I was not delighted at the news that we were hiding this place. Because all the way through, I was like, what? No, this is just, what do we do? No, what? Oh. So there we met in this room up here. And there's the 12th of April 2014, the first time we met on the Sabbath in the Scout Hut to do Torah portions. I shaved my beard off because people said, oh no, you'll put people off. And there's a chap that we called Orange Ian who brought JP and I suits to wear. He was really into Protestantism, and he used to wear loads of orange socks and stuff. And that suit looked baggy on me for like 3 years. I remember a couple of years ago trying it on. I said to JP, I look like a burst sausage. I can't even get into it. So yeah, it changed a little bit. And that was shot in the Scout Hut, pre-PowerPoint. So this is where we first started meeting, like, as the way biblical fellowship. But we were still doing some things in people's houses. I realised that was a ridiculous picture to have stopped it on, so I changed it to that one. It's dead. The quality's that bad. Trying to pause it and get a screenshot is not easy. So here we see an early PowerPoint, how keen I was for tech. It's like, we've got to do, I remember JP saying, we should do like PowerPoint presentations. No, I think we're fine as we are. I don't know. Now, whilst I was still at the link, I used to volunteer here. This is the Charles Thompson's mission. Okay, it's a place where they look after the poor. They've got loads of clothes because people will go there and they will dish out clothes to them and they feed them and they look after people. And the guy in the middle there is Bernie. He's a lovely fella. And he was the guy I used to mostly see while I was there. He kind of runs the place, you know. But it amazes me to see how Yehovah's hand steers things. This guy here, he's kind of like, he's his mate, but he's like the main boss of not just that place, but over whole areas, including this building. And his name is Rob Watson. As you can see, this place looks after the homeless and feeds them and everything else. And anyway, I worked there for a time, and it was at the time when I realised that I really wanted to draw close to the Lord, and I just thought it was this would be a good thing to do, because I wanted him to know that I was serious. And I was there for a while. I even did a teaching there. This is while the Lord was revealing to me his truth, and that went down really well. And, I was telling JP just then as well that they'd asked me to do some music there, and that would probably have become a regular thing. And on the morning I was first meant to do it, I got incredibly ill and sick, to the point where I really thought, like, oh, I'm dying. And I had to phone up and say, I can't come in. I was really, really ill. And then at 12 o'clock, when it would have been impossible for me to go anyway, I just instantly felt brilliant. I remember thinking, that's just ridiculous, that's odd, that's not normal, that. And I actually never ended up going back there, and I kind of recognised it as a turning point, really. But my time there was great, because we were successful in attaining the opportunity to rent the building we're in now, because when we came here to view it, we were going to meet this Rob Watson, who was like this overseer of all these buildings in this Liverpool City mission and different churches and this, that and the other. It's quite daunting, you know, as I'm not long a recovered alcoholic, a bit of a, you know, scallywag and stuff, and we turn up. But he'd got out the car with Bernie, who I'd worked with, and we instantly had a rapport. And so the Lord just makes things the way he does, doesn't he? And just brings about his purpose. No one can thwart his plans. And so that's why we're here. And one of the first teachings filmed here seems to have been in early 2015. You can see the quality is tremendous there. And in 2015, we go back, there's a picture of me and JP and Mel. I think you're probably the only person remaining out of the first initial people who came. And she said, I want to be baptized. And we ended up finding this place, and it's the place that we always go to now, isn't it? We're in Bedgellet, where we do baptisms, and people online might have seen the videos. And there you go. There's a picture from the baptism. And of course, at the same time, we're learning about all these feasts, and there's Sukkot.
That's 2014.
Oh, is it 14? Okay, I'm terrible on it. But Sukkot has gone from this, that's me where I didn't even have a tent, and I slept in an orange bag, which was great, to all meeting together and having a big tent where everybody can go in. Isn't it amazing? I just think, wow, Lord, you're fantastic. And so somehow I'm sat here now, and this is live streamed, and we're in this amazing building. The Lord has brought it all about. He's made it all happen. I just think, wow. Thank you, Lord. And I thank every one of you who's been a part of what goes on and what's still going on. The heart of man plans his way, but Yehovah establishes his steps. I give thanks for Yehovah for taking me from thinking that I was totally alone, to knowing that there are people all over the world who also delight in Yehovah's truth. It's a big thing to realize, isn't it? And I feel for anybody who might be in a situation where they're completely isolated and feel alone, and but please know that you're not. And not only that, I've got some great friends close and some far away that are family to me. And it's amazing, that, isn't it? And I know some of them will be watching now, so a big hello. And I know that Yehovah has watched over me and that he has blessed me incredibly. Thank you, Lord. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, for the soul who seeks him. I can say, wow, yeah, that is so true. You are great and you do wondrous things. You alone, O God, Teach me your way, O Jehovah, that I might walk in your truth. Unite my heart to fear your name. I give thanks to you, O Lord my God, with my whole heart, and I will glorify your name forever. Amen to that. We know for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. For those he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. Thank you, Lord.